Statues are amongst the most significant monuments we have around, and that being said, the fact that statues are stationary means that people can go close to them without being scared. But what happens when one of them suddenly decides to flip the switch and move? It might seem like a lie, but there have been situations in the past where literal statues were caught seemingly possessing the ability to move. And if you don't believe me, join us on this journey into some truly bizarre moments that involve statues in the past. Statue blinks its eyes. One of the most significant reasons that people build statues is to affirm their faith and belief in some deity or another. In fact, it seems like every religion has a set of statues that allude to their gods and goddesses. In local Chinese culture, one of the most prominent deities is this one, the goddess of mercy, who's seen as the physical embodiment of compassion. With so many followers, it should not come as a surprise that this goddess has massive monuments that honor her. A few years ago, tourists at a temple were admiring a lovely statue of her when they noticed it somehow began to blink its eyes. The scene was truly an eerie one. A statue, which was expected to just sit there and look pretty, suddenly began blinking, and to make things even weirder, the eye blink was captured multiple times. I'm actually impressed that tourists recorded this one and didn't run for the hills as soon as they saw it. If this happened before me, I'd be out of there quicker than anyone could say the word run. Kali's moving eyes. Speaking of statues' eyes behaving weirdly, come with us on a trip to India where we see something fascinating. As we all know, Hindus generally don't mess around when it comes to their deities, and they tend to have very descriptive ways to express their devotion to these beings, including, especially, their incredibly detailed statues. A few years back, a group of tourists visited a park where there was a statue of Kali, one of the major Hindu goddesses. She's often associated with time, change, creation, power, destruction, and death. And they appeared to be a family with adults and children moving together, enjoying the sights and sounds of the environment. But at some point, something strange took place. The person holding the camera got in front of the statue, and it seemed as though the statue's eyes began to move and follow him around. Statues do tend to have predetermined positions for their physical features, but somehow, this one's eyes literally followed the guy, almost up to the point where it was looking directly at him and trying to catch a gaze or something. I don't know about you, but I found that to be incredibly freaky. Moving statue in Ramswaram. Still in the beautiful country of India, we now go to Ramswaram, one of the country's many municipalities, and one that holds cultural significance. According to legend, the city came to be after Rama, a major Indian deity, had built a bridge trying to rescue his wife from an abductor. It's got a huge temple in its center, and there are several monuments depicting gods of different types. A few years ago, this video surfaced out of a temple, sending chills down the spines of everyone who saw it. If you're scared that the statue suddenly began moving, it may be worth noting that it's actually a mechanical statue. The movement is on purpose. It doesn't make it any less creepy though, but at least there's some sort of explanation here. Sai Baba statue moves its hands. There are people who live in such interesting lives that they essentially become deified and revered by thousands after their passing. Sai Baba was one such man. Although nobody's sure about when he was born, we do know that he died in 1918, and all through his life, the spiritual master drew a lot of fascination. Many had considered him to be a saint, and even to this day, he has a lot of fans, both in the Muslim and Hindu religions, who are fiercely devoted to him and his teachings. Sai Baba has statues made by devotees in order to honor him, and back in 2020, footage would be released onto the internet showing a moment when one of these statues suddenly decided to literally move its arms. You may think that moving the adornment from its neck would be enough, but you'd be wrong. As it turns out, Sababa's statue also decided to stretch out its hand, kind of like it was trying to collect something. Something tells me the person who had this statue in his shop would absolutely be freaked out. Virgin Mary statue blinks its eyes. The Virgin Mary is one of the most revered characters in the world, and according to Christian theology, she was the one who gave birth to Jesus Christ. Who then went on to pay the ultimate sacrifice to save mankind from eternal damnation. Being the mother of the Savior of the world, she's long been held as the epitome of sacrifice and sanctity, and just as they pray to Jesus, there are many Catholics who also pray to the Virgin Mary. It should come as no surprise that she's also had many statues dedicated to her. A few years back, viewers were shocked when a clip surfaced on the internet showing what appeared to have been the statue of Virgin Mary opening and shutting her eyes. It's worth noting that no one actually knows where the clip was taken. Some believe it was a church in India, while others claim it originated from a Catholic nativity scene in Sicily. Wherever it may have been, I can only imagine the look of utter shock on people's faces. Jesus Christ statue moves its eyes. We already spoke about the Virgin Mary statue opening its eyes. As it would appear, the ability to do this may be hereditary. As already pointed out, the Virgin Mary is the mother of Jesus Christ, and it would seem that the Lord and Savior of the world also made people do a double take. In this footage, we see what appears to be the statue of Christ on the cross, suddenly opening and shutting its eyes. According to reports, this footage was captured at a church in Mexico. Someone was making a video while the service was going on, and then they caught this. If I were that person, this service would definitely have been over at that point. Jesus Christ statue turns its head. Still on the subject of Jesus, you can imagine there would be thousands of statues of him all over the world. Christianity is the most popular religion, and with billions of followers, any holiday or event that surrounds Jesus is celebrated like no other. In this next video, we see a moment when something interesting happens. While at a procession celebrating the Easter holiday, a statue of Jesus that depicted him carrying the cross of Calvary on the way to being crucified suddenly appeared to turn its head. Now, I'm not sure where the video was taken, although most sources claim it was a local church in a Mexican city, and I'm just amazed at how people didn't flinch when they saw this. It kind of makes you wonder if they were already used to it or something. Crying statue in New Mexico. This next clip may not necessarily show a statue doing gymnastics or anything crazy, but it's impressive nonetheless. In 2018, parishioners at a Catholic church in New Mexico were stunned to find one Sunday morning a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe began shedding tears.
Segura says parishioners noticed them after Sunday's noon mass.
Word about the crying statue soon traveled far, and several people began going to the church just to pay homage and pray to it. The head of the parish claimed that the statue was crying because of all the violence in the world, but I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Cemetery statue stalks tourists. I'm personally not sure why anyone would want to hang around a cemetery. I know we all want to chase thrills, but to be honest, anything can happen. Take this next clip, for instance. A couple of thrill seekers made their way to a cemetery at night, only to find a statue that seemed to open its eyes and shut them again. Something tells me that this is your cue to get the hell out of there before things take a turn for the much more scary. Jesus statue moves during Good Friday Mass. If you were raised in a Catholic family, I'm willing to bet you didn't mess around with Good Friday. Considering that Christians believe strongly in miracles, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people at this church must have been pleasantly surprised when all of this happened. It might not be too obvious, but if you look closely, you can see the miracle, even though it's incredibly haunting if you ask me. Buddha statues come to life. What would you do if you saw the statue of a deity that you believe in suddenly moving? Would you take it as a sign the world's coming to an end? Maybe you would think of it as affirmation of your faith. For Buddhists, it appears to be the right thing to do would be to get a bunch of cameras and start filming. A few years ago, tourists at a Buddhist temple in Kuala Lumpur were stunned when a statue of Buddha appeared to have been moving. According to several of the tourists, this was not the only one that moved. Several others did the same, moving their hands and even making motions like they were breathing. This is definitely the type of thing that should scare people, but it would appear that these guys were more fascinated than they were scared. What I'd give to have their bravery. Egyptian statue turns backward. If there's one civilization that has continued to maintain prominence for the statues made in its heyday, it's the ancient Egyptian civilization. They made statues for just about anyone who was prominent, and today many statues adorn the halls of museums and art galleries around the world. A few years back, one particular statue caused a bit of a stir after it was said to have moved at a museum in Manchester. The clip is a time-lapse video that was taken over the course of 11 hours. According to reports, the museum's curator confirmed that it wasn't a case of sleight of hand or anything else. The statue literally moved and did a 180 on its own, going from looking at visitors to turning its back on them. Interestingly, the museum claimed that this wasn't the first time that this would happen. Even when the 1,000-year-old statue was locked in a glass case, it managed to move itself. Yikes! I'm not sure whose statue that is, but it sure looks like he must have been angry from the afterlife or something like that. Snow White statue blinks. You know those movies where you get to see amusement parks that have become abandoned? Well, there's an amusement park in Mexico that probably gives off such a vibe. It had been abandoned for a few years, and as you can imagine, a lot of people went there to look for possible signs of paranormal activity. A few years ago, a group of investigators found themselves looking for a piece of paranormal evidence, and while walking past a statue of the popular character Snow White, this happened. Yes, that was Snow White blinking. Now, I know it was only for a moment, but you've got to have seen it. Some people claim that maybe the statue had a mechanism which allowed the blinking action, but considering how old it was, I would honestly doubt it. Christ statue nods repeatedly. For this clip, we'll head back to the theme of religious statues getting the ability to move from out of nowhere. At a Christmas procession in Mexico in December of 2016, onlookers and devotees were stunned when they discovered what appeared to have been the statue of Jesus that they were hauling suddenly moving its head. If it was the case of a statue's head moving slightly and only once, you'd be justified in calling it a fluke, but this literally happened more than once, and you can clearly see that head moving. The people who uploaded the clip confirmed it wasn't a mechanical statue, so trust me when I say my mind has been blown just like yours has. Weeping Virgin Mary. Back in early 2023, churchgoers at a local tabernacle in Mexico City were preparing for what they thought would be a normal service, but their regular service soon turned into a spooky episode after realizing one of the statues of the Virgin Mary literally began to weep. According to reports, nobody touched the statue in quite a while, and judging by the fact that it was safely enclosed in glass, droplets of water began falling from its eyes as if it were shedding tears. It is the Virgin Mary, so who knows? Perhaps she was crying for the sins of mankind or something. Thirsty Shiva. Most people who worship deities and have statues of them try as much as possible to maintain them. They clean them, keep them behind barriers, and even repaint them from time to time to give them a sweet buff. But what if I told you there's one statue that loves being fed as well? In this next clip, we see a moment where a worshiper of the Indian goddess Shiva literally feeds the statue, and the statue actually drank. Now, this is absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, who knew that goddesses needed regular feedings? That's just an interesting thing. Virgin Mary prays along. Have you ever felt like the prayers you're making are being heard by someone who's not on this side of existence? I'm pretty sure these guys must have, after sifting through this footage. Taken a few years back, this clip shows the statue of a Virgin Mary in what appears to be a prayerful mood, as it seems to recite along with a group that are in the middle of praying.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. O my Jesus, forgive us our sins, save us from the fires of hell.
If you look closely enough, you can see what appears to be the statue's lips moving. Who knows? Maybe it was as engrossed in the activity that it decided to join in on the prayers as well. Sphinx closes its eyes. The Sphinx is one of the oldest massive monuments in Egypt and one of the most recognizable in the entire world. The structure, which has the body of a lion and head of a human, is said to be the depiction of one of the pharaohs of old. Now, while the Sphinx was built with open eyes, thousands were shocked a few years ago when footage came forth showing the structure had apparently closed its eyes. People had claimed that this was some kind of altered image, but the person who began the trend actually included multiple images of what he had seen. Now look, the structure has been up there for almost 10,000 years. At that point, I think it deserves some shut-eye. Virgin Mary's red tears. At this point, we've seen several statues of women crying, but for our final entry in this subcategory, why not take a look at this clip and tell me if it doesn't give you the heebie-jeebies?
I'll sing a hymn to Mary.
Now, is that blood? As in the Virgin Mary is literally crying blood right now? The clip was taken at a Catholic church in Sri Lanka, and according to the people who took it, it's 100% authentic. It would appear that tourists taking videos of the statue only for it to spontaneously begin crying blood. How the heck would science even explain this one? Man and woman. In this final video, we look at a set of statues that actually tell a story. Say hello to Man and Woman. Located in a seaside city in Georgia, Man and Woman is a massive moving steel sculpture designed by a sculptor, and it's in the shape of a man and woman who face each other. And it was actually inspired by a novel from 1937. In the novel, a Muslim boy and a Georgian princess fall in love and strike a romance that defies their separate backgrounds. Sadly, the story ends tragically as the two are separated following the invasion of Soviet Russia. And considering the fact that the Soviet invasion of Georgia caused the displacement of millions, it could actually have been a true story, but we may never know. Man and Woman is a truly architectural marvel. Designed in 2007 and installed in 2010, it is especially awesome because by 7 p.m. every day, the figures begin to move closer to each other. The structures are intertwined, going into each other for a quick embrace before leaving each other behind. It takes about 10 minutes for the movement to be complete, after which the cycle restarts once again, and it's pretty cool if you ask me. So there you have it. It turns out that a lot of statues may indeed possess the ability to move, and some of us might not know it. But still, what do you think? Are they real? And do you think a statue is really capable of eating something? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you never miss a video like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.